welcome back to the show. And if you're new here, welcome. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm your host, Natasha, coming to you from London, Ontario. I cannot even begin to express my gratitude to those of you who have been on this journey with me and have listened to the episodes week over week. I can't believe it's episode 4. There's many more where those came from, though, so make sure to stay tuned. Today's case is an emotionally challenging one. Squad, I need to warn you, this episode may not be for everyone's ears. It was an extremely difficult case to research and develop because it involves crimes against a child. Although I will not use gratuitous detail, some of the elements of this episode will include descriptions of assault and sexual abuse. It is the tragic story of little Victoria Stafford, who went missing in 2009 in Woodstock, Ontario. I just want to take a moment to say that if you need mental health support, there are resources available. If you are in Canada and feel like you need immediate assistance, please call 911 or visit your local hospital. If you need emotional support, please note the following resources. If you are aged 20 or below, you can contact the Kids Help Phone at 1-800-668-6868. It is completely confidential and operates 24 hours a day. If you're First Nations, you can access help toll-free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by calling 1-855-242-3310. For a list of crisis centers across Canada that can offer support, please go to suicideprevention.ca and click Need Help. Okay, now all of that aside, let's dive in, squad, to the story of little Tori Stafford. When a crime is committed, the focus naturally begins with the direct family members of the victim. The missing wife leads to an investigation against the husband. The murdered boyfriend leads to the confession from the abused partner. The missing child leads to the disgraced parent. According to the Royal Canadian Police Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, in 2013, there were approximately 41,000 missing child reports made to law enforcement within Canada. This statistic actually works out to be approximately one child every 12 minutes. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel is that 95% of these children are located within a week-long period, but some are not so lucky. Many of these children remain classified as runaways. Stranger abductions are only present in a small sampling, and parental abductions actually account for about 130 of the total reports. It is difficult to imagine a parent participating in the abduction of their child. Imagine, though, for a moment, in your small town, let's say population about 40,000, your child doesn't return home from school at the normal time. Nobody wants to believe the worst. Even the police don't suspect foul play, although they aren't ruling it out. The more days that pass, the more people in the town start to talk. You are heartbroken that your child is missing, and when you are accused with a crime, you're in complete disbelief. Woodstock, Ontario. A city situated about 40 minutes by car from my hometown of London, approximately 128 kilometers from Toronto. Woodstock promotes itself as the friendly city and is known for being the dairy capital of Canada. It's home to the Woodstock Museum, a campus of Fanshawe College, a casino, and many festivals. Being a relatively small town, there isn't a lot to report in terms of tragedy. Perhaps one of the most newsworthy events happened in August of 1979. The city would experience devastation when an F4 category tornado would touch down and rip through the city, destroying anything in its wake and leaving many people injured. In April of 2009, the city would again experience devastation when one of their own would go missing. Victoria Elizabeth Marie Stafford, affectionately known as Tori, was born July 15, 2000, in Woodstock, Ontario, to parents Tara MacDonald and Rodney Stafford. Her favorite color was purple. She, by all accounts, was a very caring girl who loved animals and looked up to her big brother Daryn. Like many young girls, she loved to paint her nails and shop. She also loved to sing and dance and was known as a happy-go-lucky prankster. Her favorite show was Hannah Montana. Her favorite holidays were Halloween because she got to dress up in costume, and Christmas because of all the pretty lights. Her father, Rodney Stafford, described her as, quote, a little diva and a little firecracker. Many pictures of Tori exist online in newspaper archives and news footage. Each picture of her captures a moment in time, and it's clear in many of them Tori was a happy child. In one of the photos published by the National Post, Tori is posed against a backdrop that looks to be a ravine or stream. She is casually leaning against a wooden box. She is wearing blue jeans and a pink shirt with the word shopping written on it in purple text. Her short blonde hair is pushed back from her face by a black headband. Her blue eyes are crinkled just so, and her smile is pure sunshine. When I look in her eyes, I get a sense of who she was. A little feisty, with a dash of curiosity, and a lot of kindness. It is an immense injustice that her life was cut short. This year, 2023, Tori would have turned 23 years old. Unfortunately, Tori will forever remain frozen at the tender age of 8, frozen in time as a little angel with an impish grin. April 8th, 2009 was a big day for Tori, for a few reasons. The family had recently moved in to a new home, and to celebrate, Tori was allowed to have friends over for a movie night. But perhaps one of the most exciting times on the agenda for the day was that Tori was taking a large step into independence, and for the very first time, she was going to walk home from school by herself without her brother Daryn accompanying her. After all, the new house was only 3 blocks away from Oliver Stevens Public School, the school Tori attended. As if the day weren't already exciting enough, Tori was also allowed to borrow a pair of earrings from her mother, Tara. Looking at photos of the earrings, I can see why they had such a draw for her. The earrings were dangly and had 3 beautiful black butterflies on them. It was these earrings that caused Tori to be late leaving school that day, as testified in court by her teacher, Jennifer Griffin Merle. The teacher explained that Tori had run back to class after being dismissed to make sure she didn't forget the earrings, which were in her desk. At some point during the day, she had taken them off and stored them safely. After retrieving the earrings, Tori left the classroom. She made her way out of the school and to the schoolyard. 7 minutes later, surveillance videos pick up footage which would lead to a number of puzzling clues. The video footage would be released April 9th, the day after Tori went missing. Tara MacDonald would become worried that her daughter did not return home that April 8th afternoon. She contacted police around 6 that evening, and the search began. The actions taken by the Woodstock Police Department came under scrutiny almost immediately. The police did not issue an Amber Alert when Tori had been reported missing. I'm sure many of you know what an Amber Alert is, but as a quick refresher, or for those of you who don't know, Amber Alerts are emergency broadcasts to announce when a child goes missing and is presumed to be in danger. Because the police didn't necessarily suspect foul play at the onset of Tori's disappearance, and they didn't have enough information to meet the other eligibility requirements, they claimed they were unable to issue the Amber Alert. The other criteria that they would have needed would have been a known description of the abductor, including a vehicle or confirmation that the child was in serious danger of being harmed or killed. On April 9th, 2009, police notified the media Tori was missing. They also revealed there was video footage from a surveillance camera belonging to College Avenue Secondary School. College Avenue was extremely close to Tori's school, Oliver Stevens Public School. The footage showed classes being let out. Tori was identified among the students heading home. The footage itself captures a little girl, later identified as Tori, walking with a woman. The woman had dark hair pulled into a ponytail and was wearing a white winter coat. The woman was described as between the ages of approximately 19 and 25, Caucasian, approximately 5'2" in height, and around 120 pounds. When the footage was released, people weren't sure what to think. After all, Tori certainly didn't look like she was being led away forcefully by this mystery woman. And often, women aren't involved in violent crimes, so in my opinion, people initially sighed a small breath of relief in believing Tori would be returned unharmed. Police were quick to launch a ground search April 10th, 2 days after Tori went missing. This search effort included dog search teams, trained search and rescue volunteers, as well as volunteers from the community. Meanwhile, Rodney Stafford, Tori's father, worked nonstop to try to find her. In fact, on April 11th, he made a statement that he would refuse sleep until his loving daughter Tori was found. It seemed an impossible situation. Police and volunteers were unable to recover additional clues, so they were unable to build any kind of case. Even more difficult for residents to wrap their heads around was that a child abduction occurred in Woodstock. Woodstock, of all places. Things like that just didn't happen in this community. And the community certainly had a lot to talk about. The inevitable gossip when something horrific happens in a close-knit community began to spread, and people began jumping to conclusions. Nobody can imagine the fear and horror of a missing child unless it has happened to you. We can empathize, we can imagine, but we cannot ever know for sure what it will feel like. And hopefully, most of us will never, ever have to go through that horrible situation. Tori's disappearance was just that, a disappearance. It was officially upgraded to an abduction on April 17th, 9 days after she was last seen walking away with an unknown female after school. Woodstock police enlisted the assistance of the Ontario Provincial Police, or OPP. The OPP took over the investigation and very quickly considered Tori's disappearance an abduction. They completed ground searches in addition to what had already been done, which included investigation of a large pond in Woodstock. Still, no leads were reported to police or the media. Tori's mother, Tara MacDonald, and Tori's stepfather, James Goris, spoke with London's A Channel News. They revealed Tori was missing and offered a $10,000 reward for her safe return home. However, further attempts by the media to obtain comment from James and Tara were rebuffed by the couple. Because of this, Tara came under fire by the media and the community almost right away. Talk in the town had people speculating about the fact that she had reportedly urged friends and family members to abstain from giving interviews to the press. And sadly, this unwillingness to speak to the media did not help Tara's case in terms of public perception. Many members of the community who didn't even know the family or Tori personally were volunteering their time, passing out posters with Tori's picture and getting the word out about her disappearance. Everybody was banding together in the hopes that someone would recognize the little girl and provide a much-needed tip to police. It seemed almost unfathomable that the child's mother would stay out of the limelight and refuse to be part of the brewing media storm to get information out to as many people as possible. Eventually, Tara would commit to holding daily press conferences, and anytime one was missed because she felt overwhelmed or unable, this was reported with an undertone of disgust. The gossip would become so abundant that the National Post would publish an article on May 9th, 2009, from Tara's point of view. The article, titled "Missing Girl's Mother Slams Ignorant Gossip," expressed Tara's frustration and grief at the consistent speculation that she had something to do with her daughter's disappearance. The use of the internet and social media platforms meant people were free to weigh in with opinions that often did not appear to be moderated. Tara said her son Daryn had read some negative comments online and had a very emotional reaction, with him saying, quote, "I don't understand why people are doing this to you, Mom," end quote. Tara had also said that police seized her computer and her mother's computer to search for any indication of a potential online interaction between Tori and a stranger that might have led to her disappearance. Tara became more and more upset that the focus seemed to be more about wild speculation instead of Tori herself. On April 15th, Tara called a spontaneous news conference to address rumors that her daughter was taken because of a reported $20,000 drug debt owed by Tara and James to a drug dealer. She begged that the focus stay on finding Tori rather than accusations of why she may be missing. The town continued to bring forward their own thoughts and opinions, which Tara referred to as, quote, "town talk," end quote. Ultimately, Tori's parents wanted the focus on their daughter and not the drama unfolding in their own lives. At a press conference, Tori's father, Rodney, said, quote, "If you think about it, it's not fair to us. Somebody stole our child," end quote. Many, like myself, followed this case from beginning to end and wanted desperately to believe Tori would be returned safely. 26 days after the surveillance video showing Tori walking with an unknown female had been released to the public, the tips to police reached the 2,500 mark. Among many of these early tips, many were regarding the identity of the unidentified female. These tips pointed to an 18-year-old local woman named Terry Lynn McClintock. Terry Lynn McClintock was born in Woodstock in 1990. Her mother was a stripper who, at the birth of her daughter, gave her up to another fellow stripper and best friend, Carol McClintock. Carol kept Terry Lynn as her own. It is unknown if Carol and Terry Lynn's biological mother kept in touch or not. Over the years, Carol and Terry Lynn moved frequently, typically every couple of years. The moves took them across Ontario, and they lived in cities such as Guelph, Hamilton, North Bay, Parry Sound, and Muskoka. I can understand how difficult this must have been for Terry Lynn growing up. Moving around a lot means attending lots of different schools and always being the new kid. My mother moved us around once every couple of years or so I changed schools a lot. While most people attend maybe 1 to 3 schools for the entirety of their educational career, I attended 8. As the new kid, you're either looked at with great interest and people want to be your friend, or most often you're considered the outcast. Schools in different districts have different learning plans, so maybe you became the overachiever because you already learned what was being taught at your new school. Or maybe you missed foundational elements because you always seem to miss a specific facet of learning. With most people attending the same school from kindergarten through to grade 8 graduation, there are already established friendships, cliques. As the new kid, you learn to develop a tough skin against the inevitable bullying. Terry Lynn obviously had a lot of anger and hurt inside her. As a child, now I do need to warn you, maybe skip ahead 15 seconds if you are very sensitive to violence against an animal. So skip ahead. But as a child, Terry Lynn reportedly microwaved a small dog. The injuries sustained would require it to be euthanized. She knew what she had done was wrong because when she was asked what happened to the dog, Terry Lynn made up a story that the dog had been attacked by another animal. It is clear this is extremely disturbing behavior. In fact, one of the early red flags in childhood that indicates a potential future of violence toward people is cruelty to animals. Terry Lynn started smoking marijuana at the age of 8. I speculate this had something to do with trying to belong and fit in somewhere where she was otherwise ignored. And ultimately, in childhood, fitting in is the end all be all. Smoking pot turned into experimentation with harder drugs. At some point, she was turned over to 2 foster homes. Through the ages of 12 to 17, she had been convicted of assault upwards of 5 times and had spent chunks of time at youth detention homes. It was in these youth detention centers where Terry Lynn played out violent fantasies through written word. Terry Lynn would write letters, and these letters talked about things like revenge exacted on those who she believed crossed or wronged her by use of extreme force. These writings included things like, quote, "I just want to kill someone, just see a little blood, fucking curb stomp some bitch," end quote. In another letter, she wrote about kidnapping someone, then mutilating them so she could, quote, "smash their skull apart and put it back together like a puzzle," end quote. Pretty disturbing stuff. Fast forward to early 2009. Terry Lynn McClintock was abusing the opioid OxyContin, injecting morphine, and taking ecstasy pills. She was living in Woodstock, Ontario, in a rundown house with Carol, her adoptive mother. She had just met a man named Michael Rafferty, who was 10 years her senior at the age of 28, and they had something important in common right off the bat. Michael, like Terry Lynn, also enjoyed OxyContin as a recreational drug. On the first day Michael and Terry Lynn met, he called her cute and offered a ride home with the pizzas she was picking up from New Orleans Pizza in Woodstock. In the car, they talked about OxyContin. They had sex. Their connection grew over the next several weeks as they continued to meet up for sex and drugs. Terry Lynn would later reveal she felt that something was a little off about Michael. She felt he treated her well, but he would sometimes say and do things that upset her. He would reportedly drive around with her and suggest ways to commit a kidnapping. But Terry Lynn, clearly lacking affection in her life, didn't want to lose Michael. So she, quote, pushed the bad things aside, end quote. The two of them happening to come into each other's lives set off a chain reaction that would forever alter the lives of too many people to name. And what of Michael Rafferty? There is very little public information regarding Michael Rafferty's upbringing. He'd stated he felt he had a good upbringing, and as he learned of Terry Lynn's traumatic childhood, he had contrasted the two of them by saying, quote, "It's like Lucifer meets the Bible thumper," end quote. I assume in this case he's talking about himself being the Bible thumper and Terry Lynn being Lucifer. Unlike Terry Lynn, Rafferty had no criminal record to speak of. He was described by the Hamilton Spectator as being, quote, "the guy with boyish good looks and easy charm who went from anonymity to instant notoriety," end quote. Apparently, as a child, he spent time in Drayton, Ontario, about an hour away from the city of Guelph. He moved to Toronto and also lived in Hamilton and Kitchener. As an adult, he made his way back to Guelph and then to Woodstock. At some point, Rafferty became addicted to the pain medication OxyContin. After a series of failed relationships, mostly due to his incessant cheating, he signed up for a dating website called Plenty of Fish. I might have been on there at one point in my life, I won't lie. Anyway, Rafferty dated a plethora of women, all varying ages and some of which had children of their own. Some of these women would later admit the way he acted toward their children was inappropriate and strange. There was really no way for them to know the true monster Michael Rafferty was, and trust me, he is truly a monster. The truth is, Rafferty had been viewing and downloading child sexual exploitation videos and photos for years. His sadistic tastes also led him to be interested in downloading and viewing snuff films. For those who don't know, a snuff film is a video recording that depicts violent murder. And through all of this, he presented as a relatively normal individual. Psychopath much? He was hooking up with people on dating sites, and during this time on dating websites, he met a 22-year-old named Charity Spitzig. Charity had 4 children and had talked to Rafferty about making life easier financially. Rafferty suggested she become an escort. Spitzig acted on the suggestion, and over 5 months, she transferred almost 17,000 Canadian dollars in profit directly into Rafferty's bank account. Spitzig later said the actual dollar value was much higher because it was provided to Rafferty in cash, which was not tracked through traceable means. This next part is absolutely disgusting, and I apologize in advance for including it, but it really speaks to the kind of sick person Rafferty really is. From January to March of 2009, Rafferty conducted internet searches for terms such as children for sale, sale of babies, real underage rape, and nude preteens. He engaged in online conversation towards the end of March with a woman who had a daughter who was young enough to still be sleeping in a crib. Rafferty had asked this woman if she would, quote, give him her firstborn, and also asked if her younger daughter would be snuggling up with the two of them in bed. Ugh, gross, cringe. Honestly, researching this was so difficult. Clearly, Rafferty is an abhorrent, deeply disturbed character. While some could argue Terry Lynn was doomed to be a violent person based on her upbringing, this begs the question, if Rafferty had what would be considered a good upbringing, is he just evil at his core? I really think so, yeah. The city of Woodstock would unfortunately find out evil does really exist, and it would present itself as 18-year-old Terry Lynn McClintock and 28-year-old Michael Rafferty. Okay, squad, that was a lot. I'm actually going to stop here, and this is going to be the conclusion of part 1 of the case of Victoria Stafford. I know this was probably a hard one to listen to, but if you made it through, be sure to listen to next week's episode of this case, where I'll explain more about little Tori's disappearance, as well as the eventual arrest and court proceedings of her kidnappers. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. And as always, remember to stay safe and be kind to each other.